The Schmozone podcast. We have the man, Natan Levy, 8-1. Thanks for joining us, my friend.
Thank you for having me.
Of course, the master of jiu-jitsu, karate as well, among other things.
Trying my best, yeah.
You always do a great job.
Yeah, thanks for taking the time to come on our show, because I know that since you guys went to lunch a while back at that one hummus place, like David, he literally took me there. I loved it. Then he took even my whole family there. They loved it. And he's always like, yeah, Natan took me to like the best food spot ever. So
Yeah, it's my favorite.
I got Chinese family right here. Helen's family hooked on some shawarma, hummus. I mean,
and
thank you, Natan. Thank
even
you.
my dad, usually like he never eats that stuff. He's all like, bowl of white rice every meal. And he loved that spot too. So thank you.
That's awesome. I'm happy.
They put shawarma on a baguette. It's normally always on pita, but that baguette is fresh and it's so damn good.
Yeah, they bake it right there.
It's like they knew you were born in Paris in France or something like that. So you're getting the mix of French cuisine and like Israeli cuisine all at once.
Yeah, exactly.
Man, you get the best of both worlds. But thanks for joining us today. We're filming this podcast the Monday after an eventful UFC 282. That's probably the best way to say it. And I think one of the biggest storylines, if not the biggest storyline, was, did Paddy Pimblett win that fight? I mean, he's your weight division. He's got all the hype. I know you saw that fight. What's your take?
Yeah, he did not win that fight. I think the judging was atrocious. But, sometimes the mistake the judges do go against you. Sometimes it goes with you. So it's kind of fair play in that way. But, of course, we would rather the judges to be really accurate in their decision-making.
Well, how did you score that fight?
I thought it was 30-27. Could have been second round for Paddy, but for all I saw, most of Paddy's strikes were landing on the gloves. It was making like it was looking good, but it wasn't landing. Like he was being aggressive, offensive. Maybe the judges saw it one way because what it looks like, but from the TV I could tell he's landing on the gloves, and the other guy was landing clean.
And to your point too, we were there in the arena watching it. He did give Jared like a cut on the bridge of his nose, and sure, you get blood that way, but in terms of damage, if you look at the significant strikes and the total strikes, Jared had that fight. And I agree with you. I did score it in real time, 30-27 to Jared. You can make an argument in that second round, 10-9 to Paddy, but man, I don't know what they were watching. Were they swayed by the popularity, by the pop? Because he definitely had the largest pop in the entire arena of all the fighters for the fight night. And we know about his popularity, and he was making his, pay-per-view Las Vegas debut. It just makes you question things, right?
Yeah, I'm not too big of a conspiracy theorist. I do think the judges could have been swayed by the crowd. I think the judges could have been swayed by Paddy's posture and stature. He has good ring general shape. Like he controls the ring well. He looks bigger. He walks forward. But again, it's not about that. This is like the last criteria you judge. Damage trumps everything, and he was not doing the damage. I will say he has a hell of a chin.
Certainly does. You can't argue that. Both those guys took some shots. They ate shots.
Yeah, but he was not dazed. Like clean left hook, clean right hands, and he's not moving.
I mean, he's had a hell of a year. I'll give him that. And someone that you used to train with too, Jordan Levitt, he finished him, and no one had finished. Had no one finished Jordan Levitt to that point?
Never.
So he was the first one to finish Jordan Levitt. But yeah, the Gordon fight, it's just questionable. And he's in your division. You could be fighting him one day.
I think I will fight him one day. The question is just when. Um, Props to him. I think he is a great fighter. No easy task in finishing Jordan Levitt, let alone beating him, but with a finish. So I do respect his skill. I respect his chin, but I feel like it's not the. You don't want to rely on that too much. You can only rely on that chin for so long. Got to get a better defense. Um, and yeah.
Well, on that note of you saying that you think you will fight him someday, does it make you nervous, like after watching the fight this past weekend with the judging, that if you were to fight Paddy and it goes to decision, it may not be favorable to you because of, maybe some outside noise or whatever the judges might be watching?
Yeah, I think I'll cross that bridge when I get there. We're not booked to fight right now, and I think it's not going to be in the near future. I think that's a little bit more down the road. By then, I'm hoping I will also have a lot of crowd behind me. And also, I feel like I've found my groove in this fight. I feel like I could have finished Valdez. Just this guy's a Terminator is unfinishable almost. But I think like I'm going to start getting finishes myself in the UFC now. So I don't, I still always come in there ready to win a decision, but that's not my plan.
And we're definitely going to get to your victory.
Yeah,
UFC Fight Night,
congrats.
Orlando. It was 2 weekends ago. You beat Valdez, tough opponent himself, and you're impressive. And this was your first full fight camp at the Xtreme Couture gym, correct?
Yeah.
And you looked good.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Put a lot of work into it. I always have like, for example, the kicks that really show themselves in this fight. I've been doing those kicks for years, but always missed by a couple inches, and finding my timing, my rhythm, and started to land those. I think that was a good display, but I think I can do a lot better even.
It's hard to just want to congratulate yourself rather than criticize yourself, right? And because you're seeking gold, you're seeking to be at the top of the sport.
Yeah, I think it is important to celebrate the victories and not be too hard on yourself. For me, Valdez, he's a monster, and in my mind, he was a monster for months. He was what I was thinking about all day, having nightmares about it, dreams about it, but came in there and defeated him and proved to myself and the world that I'm also a monster,
And that's what it's all about.
And like you said, when you have those nightmares and you're just constantly thinking about, that fight, that moment, how do you stay composed through the fight camps and, letting yourself know to relax and that everything will work out and be confident as well? Like, how do you balance all that?
It is hard to balance because as a fighter, you feel like if you're not thinking about the fight, like, sometimes I'd be it's already 11 p.m. I'm in bed trying to sleep, and then I start going through scenarios of the fight in my imagination, and I'll just be like, you know what, just think about the fight tomorrow. Now you got to sleep because sleep is important. But on the other hand, you feel like you're getting outworked by not thinking about the fight. Like if you're having fun, even if you did all your training, you're like, it's not okay that I'm not thinking about the fight. It's not normal. But thankfully, you have people you trust to tell you it's okay to not think about the fight. It's okay to go have a little bit of fun on the weekend. It's only as long as you're doing everything you need to be doing, it's fine. You don't need to thinking about the fight 4 hours a day is not going to make you better in the cage.
How about the moment though? That crowd, that live crowd in Orlando, because I know you fought in the Apex and it's so much different, like between fighting in front of a live crowd for a fight night versus being in the Apex. How was that for you?
It was amazing. I absolutely loved it. The fighting since 2020 in front of small crowds, usually staff, maybe at the Apex a few people. I kind of got used to it, and fighting in front of a crowd sounded kind of scary. But when I was in there, it really reminded me that I do have like a showman side to me, And when people are watching, whether it be training, sparring, I kind of want to give that extra and put on a show. And I think the crowd really hyped me up. I had my family came from Israel, my big brothers, some friends. I saw some Israeli flags in the crowd. Um, I took the moment in, stepping into the cage during the ceremonial weigh-ins, during the fight. I really enjoyed the fans. I really enjoyed the energy. I don't want to ever fight without a crowd again.
I was going to say that would probably be the reaction. And it's great that your family got to come too, because I know you were celebrating with them after the fight in the Miami, South Beach area, South Florida. And there's some great damn food there too, and a nice Israeli population.
Yeah, there's a lot of, I didn't expect it. You got streets of kosher food. Bunch of Israeli or Jewish people came up to me, just wanted a picture or something. That was really cool. That doesn't happen to me often in the US. So that was cool.
Well, you got teed off pretty good at that post-fight press conference, asking you about that Kanye question. Everybody talks about Kanye and his atrocious words and anti-Semitism. And regardless of whatever religion you are, and, I love sports. I don't really talk about religion. You can't control what you were born into, but you can control how you treat people. Anti-Semitism and hatred and just spewing that type of language towards people, that can't be tolerated, and I love that you take a stand to that.
Thank you. I agree with you 100%. Cannot be tolerated. That guy's been provoking us for a while now, and it's time to stand up to him and other bullies.
What's dangerous is when there's history and you try to change the narrative of history, and especially to younger generations and people not taking the time to read about or to understand the atrocities that have happened for generations and generations. And then those who fail to study the past are doomed to repeat its mistakes. And that's the worry I would have towards future generations about spewing a narrative that doesn't have actual fact base to it.
Yeah, again, I agree with you. The younger generation, they don't know everything that happened. Like for me, since I was a kid, we had the Holocaust survivors come into school. Some of them were my classmates, grandparents who survived the Holocaust. They would come in, talk to us, tell their stories. Every year, at least one. And again, we had people in our class with their grandparents were survivors. But time passes, and slowly there aren't too many anymore. And very soon there aren't going to be any. And all that's left is videos, stuff that's easier to deny. And, they're doing it. And I feel like we got to fight it. We can't let Holocaust deniers, say their piece that freely, and it's small things. So the biggest thing for me, everybody talked to me about Kanye. It makes headlines. That's cool. I'm happy. My message went kind of viral. But my message is, it's not like Kanye is not our biggest problem. Kanye is so out there, so racist. His comments are so exaggerated that he's almost like it's almost comical. It's almost like satirical. The real problem is that his soldiers, the people that follow what he's saying and are turning this verbal violence into physical violence. We see a huge uprising in crimes against Jewish people around the U.S., around the world, and it all starts on social media. It all starts in like people post that they feel like they can say whatever they want, and nobody's gonna do anything. Nobody's gonna say anything. It became okay to say those stereotypes about Jews. We control the media. We control Hollywood. That kind of anti-Semitism is where it starts, those stereotypes. Just the fact, I don't want to even counter-argue because it's not worth it. So that's it for me. Kanye is a clown. The problem is people who actually listen to this clown.
You even being a fighter, people in this social media age that we live on, they can hide behind their keyboards and they can say, you suck as a fighter. You go, get out of the UFC, you don't belong here, whatever. That's one thing, that's fine. But then you start attacking people for what they believe in and really spread violence. People pile onto that and they create this false sense of reality. It's uncontrollable, especially in the day and age we live in. And there needs to be a stand that's taken. And it's a very difficult situation to navigate because I still feel like we're in the infancy years of the internet. It's still this wild, wild west. It's hard to control. Elon Musk might be owning Twitter now, but what Twitter is a platform to disseminate information, spread it and everything, that can never fully be controlled.
You can worship rocks for all I care, as long as you don't throw that rock on me. I'm the same way. I don't have any problem with any belief, with any country, with anything. Even countries, that my countries are in war with or are not on good terms with. I'm fine with everybody, really. I'm a very peace-seeking person. But also, I think, like, if I had the option, I know it's the easiest option. Don't get into politics. Don't get into religion. Don't stand up. That's the easy way, and a lot of people are doing this. A lot of, I feel like even like some famous Israelis, they rather just not get into it. Better for sponsors, better for deals, better for movies. Yeah, cool. Okay, I understand. You make your choices. For me, I just cannot stay silent. Like, I'm sorry. I know it's not the best thing to do. Again, like as far as sponsors and all this stuff, but I don't care. I gotta do what's right. I have integrity, and this is my integrity. This is my moral code. I gotta say something.
Back to, your fight, your win, and you saying that you want to fight in front of a crowd more often. So ideally for you, when would you like to return?
I would like to return February or March. That would be perfect. Usually after every fight, I sprain my ankles, I break toes, stuff like that just from kicking. But this fight, I'm pretty healthy. Like, it still hurts to walk a little bit, but nothing's really injured. So I just need, I think, like 10 more days, a couple weeks before I can get back to kicking. Punching, my hand was hurt before the fight. If you look at the fight, you'll notice I wasn't punching too much with my left hand. But that was also just from a lot of training. If I give it a couple more weeks of rest, there's nothing that's really injured in a bad way.
When did you hurt your hand?
A month before the fight.
Were you worried that maybe you'd have to pull out?
I was worried that it might hurt my performance. I didn't think I was going to pull out because of it. I was thinking in the fight, I'll try and not throw it too much if I need it. If he gets in that left hand range, then I will throw it, and then it's going to hurt, it's going to suck, but whatever. What was more scaring me was I hurt my back like 3 weeks before the fight. And my UFC debut that was scheduled against Hubbard, I had to pull out because my neck and back were in terrible shape. I couldn't move, I couldn't train for the whole month leading up to the fight. That I'm talking about the first fight that I had scheduled in the UFC. Then, like 2 weeks before the fight, I was starting to feel better. My coach said, let's do a sparring and see where you're at. I did that sparring. It went okay, but then I hurt my back again. So, overall, I had to pull out of this fight. So it scared me for this one. I did not want to get in the same position. In the first one, it happened a lot because the moment I'd feel better, I would jump back into training, hurt it again. I just had like crazy inflammation in the muscles in my back and spasm and stuff like that. Pretty bad. So for this fight, I had the same thing, but I just had to take like 2 weeks off of training. And then really slowly, then I had only 1 week left to train for the fight. I trained kind of slow. That was more scary to me, that I would re-injure my back, or that I would just not be able to perform because I couldn't train properly for the last 3 weeks of camp.
So how is your back now? Is it a lot better?
So I think that I did the smart thing, not training. Again, it puts it raises some doubts in you. You're like, oh, I didn't train. Am I gonna be in shape? Am I gonna be ready? But I think it showed that I put enough work up to that point that even without 3 weeks of training, I was still able to do those 3 rounds and feel good. Right now, the back is good. I'm doing massages, doing physical therapy at the PI, and I'm gonna keep an eye on it. Climb back slowly, take it easy. But like I said, I am ready to jump into camp. I'll do what I need to do, my adjustments, to not irritate my back.
And you say February, there's a pay-per-view card in Australia. I mean, kind of
Yeah,
far
that
travel
would be
though,
cool.
or
Islam
March in
Makhachev,
Vegas.
the champion, is fighting on that card.
Really?
Yeah,
Yeah.
Volkanovski.
Nah, that's right. Very cool. Sounds fun.
Too soon.
No, not necessarily too soon. A little bit far.
Yeah.
But you know what Sean Shelby says, the contract he sends, I'm just gonna sign it.
What it would be, I was talking to Helen about it, what the travel would be from Perth to here. So you'd have to just take one of those 45-minute flights from here to LA, then LA to Sydney, which is probably about 15, 16 hours. And then you have a 6-hour flight from Sydney to Perth because it's all across the country.
Wow.
So with layovers and different times, you're looking at nearly a day's worth of travel that you'd be missing out on.
Yeah, that sucks. That's usually what it takes me to get to Israel, like about 24 hours of travel time. So, you know, if I can do it in business class or something, then I might be down.
There it is. Pony up, UFC. Get this guy business class. He's on the flight right there. How about the bodies, though, that you're working with at Xtreme Couture? The different looks you're getting, because I notice so many guys come there. They have such a great relationship, whether they train there full time or they allow other coaches to come in there and work with guys. Especially that started, I noticed, during the pandemic, and it's kind of continued forward. You got a lot of different looks for this fight camp than you had for other fight camps.
Yeah, you know, the room is amazing. A bunch of guys, you know, I want to name them all, but there's so many who helped me out for this camp.
I got one I'm going to name soon, but I'm curious if you're going to say it first.
Who are you gonna name?
He's not in your weight division, but I see him posting about you quite often. He's got a fight coming up here pretty soon, too. The next couple of days or so.
I'm not sure even who you're talking about.
It's okay. You talk first, and I'll see if I fill in.
You know, we have Mateus, a young Brazilian guy. Helped me a bunch. He was my main sparring partner. He really brings the heat in sparring, and this is what I needed for this fight. He's a savage. I was going to fight a savage. It was a perfect fit. You know, Dan Ige helped me a lot in sparring, also with a few words of guidance. You know, I look up to him a lot. I trained with Kelvin Cater for 2 weeks of this camp. You know, he was doing his camp, fighting a southpaw, so I came in, helped them out. That was the first 2 weeks of my camp, which was awesome, working with Calvin, working with Dan, also in that mini camp. A bunch of guys from the East Coast.
Did Dan and Calvin work it all together too?
Yeah, a bunch. You know, was amazing to see. They fought a couple of years. Now they're training, helping each other get better. And watching them train also was just awesome, you know, fun to watch. The grappling, the striking drills, all that stuff, just fun to watch as somebody who appreciates high-level martial arts. Julian Arosa sparred with, had some good rounds together. You know, again, a bunch of guys. Work with Patchy, who also just won his fight.
Impressive.
Yeah.
Impressive.
And I was also doing the camp alongside Shimon Smotritsky, my friend from Israel. Youngster, 22 years old, already fought on Contenders twice, fought on Bellator twice, RCC twice. So we were doing the camp together. He's a 170 pounder and he's on the bigger side. So we didn't spar much and stuff like that, but we drilled a bunch, train together, eat together, chill out, you know, so it was a good time.
Well, I think the fighter that David is referring to, Sean Strickland.
Your middleweight fighter cheerleaders.
Yeah, what's it like, you know, training with him?
I like Sean a lot, actually. He's crazy, he's nuts. But I think like he's got a good heart and good intentions at the end of the day. He's crazy. You know, he walks in the gym with like a pillowcase. That's his gym bag.
A pillowcase.
His gear is in a gym bag. I'm like, bro, I'm pretty sure you're a millionaire, and you get UFC bags almost every weekend, whether you're fighting or cornering. Why are you putting that stuff in a pillowcase? He's got no answer for me. Nothing that makes sense.
You think he's a millionaire?
I would think he's pretty close to it.
I think he shoots his mouth off too much for these sponsorships. So otherwise, he would be a millionaire.
I don't think he's got any sponsors. But you know, I see the numbers, like they post what the commission, like the base payment, right?
Yeah.
I think he's making good money. I haven't asked him personally. I'm not trying to get in his pocket, but you know, I've seen some numbers after some fight nights, and I would assume that he's close to being a millionaire.
Oh, maybe he might be. I'm just saying
be,
he's
yeah.
shooting himself in the foot by how much he talks. He can't get those sponsors.
Plus, he ain't wasting money for sure. All
Yes.
his gear in the pillowcase. He's got one shin pad from one company, one shin pad from a different company, different size, different color gloves. Like, man, you're all over the place.
He showers with his AK-47 too. That's always cleaning the gun. I mean, he's
got no furniture either.
No.
Oh, no furniture.
No, he's a psycho.
He's very limited. You've seen him with his Instagram stories where he does his apartment tour.
He does like an MTV Cribs.
Yeah.
And all he's got is like a chair in the living room, maybe like a TV, you know, leaning on the wall.
Well, I just wonder, is that the same pillowcase he uses to sleep at night?
Wouldn't surprise us. Wouldn't surprise us. Were you there when Yuri hurt himself, got injured in the gym?
I got there a little bit after.
That's crazy. And they say it's the worst shoulder injury that they've seen in the UFC, the doctor's seen too, because they try to pop it back in place and all that.
Yeah, that stuff scares me.
I know. What was he doing? Was he sparring with Ankalaev? Another animal.
I have no idea, but it is, interesting to me. Again, I wasn't there. I might ask Eric, my coach from Xtreme, because it is interesting to me. But how does that work? Because, Ankalaev is obviously close to the title. On one hand, he's probably the best work Yuri can get in town. On the other hand, they might fight. So how does that work?
So I interviewed Ankalaev like a week and a half ago, like leading up to the fight, or his last like Friday, the Friday leading up to the fight. And I asked him about that. You're going, you welcomed Yuri at the time, who's the champion, who you probably one fight away from fighting, into the gym. And he was very professional about it. They both were very professional about it, because I actually interviewed Yuri early on when he came to Xtreme Couture as well. And they both realized that they'll be fighting each other down the line, but they were so laser dialed focus on their opponent now that it didn't matter. And they're both professional guys, and the respect was clearly there. I thought it was a unique situation. And then, oddly enough, Yuri gets injured. Ankalaev is fighting for the title. We were talking off air before it even started. You didn't catch that fight, but there are people thinking that, I guess we can use the word robbery, was just as bad as the Paddy Pimblett Jared Gordon fight.
Yeah, I was playing Topgolf, so I didn't catch this fight. But again, the judging, something's not right. Something's got to be done. It's been like this for years. And it proves itself again and again that it's not getting better. You would think it's going to get better with time, but it's not. So we got to do something.
This boxing scoring system, it's clearly not fitting. Like, you never have to hear from the judges too. There's 3 judges. You never have to hear explanations for why something's scored a specific way. And you're just stuck guessing. And I've talked about this at point to nauseum, whereas like if I'm a fighter and I'm fighting for different states or different countries, I'm concerned, because you never know on a given night if a judge is going to value takedowns more so than damage, or if they have control time, or however significant strikes, however their criteria is, and that specific night, wouldn't you want to know what they're favoring?
I would like to know post-round, did I win? Did I lose this round? Yeah, I understand some people are worried that, if I'm winning 2 rounds, I might just say, I'm winning these rounds for sure. Let me just, coast for one. But you can do that when you just think you won the round, or when you just convince you won the round. But when you know for a fact that you won those rounds, your opponent knows for a fact he lost those rounds and he's got to go out and get it, or it's over for him.
So open scoring, you're in favor of.
Yeah, I'm in favor of open scoring.
But I also think, like what David said, the judges should have to explain what they saw, like why they scored it a certain way.
Yeah, before my first UFC fight, my debut, one of the coaches brought a ref in, not a ref, sorry, a judge in, and he was talking to us, and we were supposed to ask him questions, kind of get what they're looking for, what they're thinking, and he said, plain and simple, and I guess that's just his opinion, but he said, "Hey, I'd rather somebody lay on top of me and hold me down for 4 minutes than somebody punches me in the face for a minute. So I'm always going to favor who did more damage, no matter the grappling. Unless you get top control and start putting ground and pound, it's not really worth anything." Okay, I thought this was MMA, not kickboxing, but whatever. Then I went out and fought my fight. In my mind, I knew I was losing the third round. So I'm not like complaining about it. In the MMA rules that are in my head, I was losing that third round, which was very important. But I outstruck him more than 2-1, and he just took me down. I got up, hit him. He took me down. I got up, hit him. That was the round, almost till the end. Then he took me down. I didn't hit him, but overall, I outstruck him by a large margin, and he won the round. Again, for me, in my mind, I knew if I'm getting taken down, I'm losing the fight. That's what I learned when I started watching MMA. That's how GSP would secure the round, get a takedown. So that's, in my mind, how you win an MMA round. But from what the judge said, I should have won.
I was just going to say, it doesn't help with the timing right now going on with the whole James Krause and the
Exactly
betting
what I was
situation.
going to say.
Yeah.
Exactly. We got, the sport is good. It's thriving. It's doing well. But don't get too complacent. Don't get, you always, like a fighter, you always got to improve or you're going to be on the downfall. And we got this gambling stuff. Hey, if they stop MMA gambling, if they stop UFC gambling in Canada, next in the United States or whatever, that's going to be a big blow. If people start thinking, and I think a lot of people think that the UFC is rigged, whoever, the UFC favors, they always get the win. I don't agree, but enough of this sentiment, and some people are going to start watching, and it's going to hurt the company.
100%. In 2007, the NBA had to deal with their controversy with Tim Donaghy, who was the longtime NBA referee, who it came out that he was involved with like point shaving. Like he was involved with fixing games too. Like gambling would come in. Like if you look at like whistle blowns within the last 2 minutes of an NBA game, I know there's controversial games like when the Phoenix Suns played the Lakers. I can think of playoff series like when the Sacramento Kings faced the Dallas Mavericks. Like controversial calls in the last couple of minutes to really decide the outcome of games, and that changed the future of so many NBA players and fortunes and everything like that. But the NBA being how popular it was, yes, it made a dent into viewership, and it took some time to get over that. Just like in professional baseball, they've had to deal with Pete Rose and other scandals and stuff like that. This sport's so young and it's growing, and the UFC is trying to find its place within the top 5 sports in this country. That would essentially turn off current viewers, casual viewers, future viewers, if you have to sit there and question the integrity of sport.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it's tough to go through this now, but hey, inevitably, I think there's controversies in all sports. Look at the NFL dealing with their concussion protocols and that type of thing that they have to deal with. Every professional sport has to go through shit to climb out of the muck and find a way to get over it. Maybe this is that for the UFC, but they need to turn this thing around fast and get to the bottom of it, because the last thing you want to do is turn off viewers from watching the product. And not just UFC, all MMA. All MMA.
Yeah. Like, what was your initial reaction when you heard the James Krause news?
I'm not familiar exactly with the gambling laws and all that stuff. I do remember that for a long time, There was word that Floyd puts money on every one of his fights, and then he, doubles the win amount, stuff like that. I remember a fighter from Xtreme, I think Justin James, who put money on himself to win the fight.
Yeah, he bet like his entire purse
He
or
bet
something
his
like
entire purse, and I remember that was very out there. Nobody said anything, which kind of makes sense for me. If you're betting money that you're gonna win, there really isn't much opening for foul play. You're gonna try and win anyway. If you put money maybe on you winning in a decision and then you feel like you can get a finish and you don't, or opposite way, then I think that could play a factor. But hey, if you put money on the fact that you're going to win, obviously you're going to try and win. Now all of a sudden he's a coach, he's putting money on other fights. I'm not sure how great that is. Then if he's putting money on his own fighters to win, I'm not sure. Maybe that's okay, but morally, you're starting to get into a very gray area. And then, of course, if you put money against your guys, I don't think he did that, but that's morally terrible and should be illegal since you are their coach.
There's a wide receiver who got injured last year for the Atlanta Falcons. He's like a wide receiver one, who's suspended all this year in the NFL because I think he had bet on a game that wasn't even related to his. It had something to do with fantasy football. Point being is you don't see any NFL player, NBA player, like gambling or openly talking about, hey, who do you got in this upcoming series and whatnot. But you guys, I guess you are independent contractors and fighters and stuff like that. There's partnerships with all these, gambling companies and sponsorships, and we know about it too. I mean, we're involved with all of it, but it's just a part of our sport, a part of the culture. But what makes it very, very sticky too is a couple of weeks ago, the fighters getting the letter about not gambling, and there's still partnerships. You can still talk about it. You just can't act upon it. It leaves room for this gray area that unfortunately exists right now, and that's the problem.
Yeah, and I think also just Krause admitting to taking over people's accounts and stuff like that. Why are you talking about that stuff, bro? Keep it to yourself.
Yeah.
It opened up a can of worms, and here we are talking about it on the Schmozone right here. Damn. But it's just part of those growing pains, though. I mean, if I like to keep things positive, so let's give this the positive spin. At least we're going through this now, 30 years into the sport, getting the kinks out of it. Remember, I brought up the NFL. The NFL, like, they were wearing leather helmets for how many decades before they realized that, hey, we need to have like a harder plastic. We should put on some full shoulder pads and other things to kind of help the safety of the sport. And you're never going to get any type of combat sport to be completely safe. No, but you're going to improve it over time in all aspects. Like if this is just part of the growing pains, so you don't have this issue 5, 10, 15, 25 years down the line and so on. Hey, better now than later, right?
I agree. I got obviously that email that says, you're not allowed to gamble anymore. Good thing is I never gambled, and I would have lost a lot of money. You would think, I'll just shoot an example. If, I'm training at Xtreme Couture and I knew Francis, I wasn't even back then, but Francis is injured in his knee, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or are you going to place money against him because his knee is that? Well, he still won the fight. So
true.
Insider knowledge, I think it depends. Like, I think all of us fighters go into the fight injured anyway. So, the insider knowledge, unless somebody is in a terrible spot, you can't really know ever who's going to win a fight.
And the UFC now has a track record of righting the wrong or attempting to clean things up. Remember the whole TRT, the IV situation, steroids? Well, now we partnered with USADA, and people are still going to complain about USADA because you got Conor McGregor. Also, your weight division, maybe, unless he's trying to come back to 170.
Yeah, I don't think
it's kind of bending the rules a little bit by pulling himself out of USADA. I thought you had to retire to be out of the program, and I thought you need 6 months testing. I think Henry Cejudo was tested 3 times within his first month and a half of USADA, and Conor only needs 2. We could talk about that if you want, but the point is, at least they're acting upon having some sort of like governing body agency to test fighters to try to level the playing field as much as possible, other it being the Wild Wild West and people shooting up God knows what horse tranquilizers or whatnot into their body the night before a fight or whatever.
Yeah, I agree, but let me tell you one thing about USADA. when you go on board on the program, they tell you, hey, if you ever took anything, it's all right. Just tell us what you took. So if it pops up on the first test, we know, you're not taking it right now. So let's say you took, I don't know, something, I have no clue. You take something for years before you sign with the UFC.
Mm-hmm.
Then you sign. They tell you, hey, everything you took until now, it's okay. It's going to be in your urine sample, in your urine test, and it's okay because you came clean. You're just not going to be able to fight for the next 6 months. And by then, we're going to see you don't have anything new in your urine that wasn't there before. You understand what I'm saying?
I do. My only interjection is, like, are you saying that they could still be taking the same supplements that, or whatever it was?
I don't know if they could be taking the same because maybe they're expecting it to diminish with time, the
Right.
amount. Maybe they have some calculations. They know if now you're loaded with the stuff
Right.
and in 6 months, how much is going to be left. But these things you take, a lot of people think, when you stop taking them, you're gonna go down and like be worse than you were off. I don't think so. I think like growth hormone, all that stuff, that's it. You grew, your tendons grew, your bones grew, your muscles grew, the amount of fibers in your muscle grew. So even if you stop taking it, you're always going to be better. So when I saw that, I was shocked. I never took anything in my life, and I'm like, oh, so you're saying anybody I fight against, that's his UFC debut, he could have been taking the whole pharmacy up until 6 months ago, and I'm going to fight him, and it's a fair fight. Well, it's not.
That's a good point. That's a good point. And getting into the nitty-gritty of other sports too, like the NBA doesn't test for HGH, and it's an 82-game season, and what people could be taking, performance-enhancing substances to help them with the recovery process. It's not being tested. They could be doing that in other sports. People get busted all the time in other professional sports for doing that. So I think the people that want to get an advantage, to find an advantage, they always find an advantage until they get caught.
Yeah.
And there's some people that never get caught, and then there's people that do get caught. But I think it's an issue that exists throughout all of sport.
Some people don't get caught, but also I think it depends. Same thing with USADA. I don't want to say something that's wrong or misinformed, but I live in Vegas and I get visited pretty often by USADA. Not like every week, maybe not even every month, but sometimes twice a month. Sometimes, it's kind of more often than I would imagine. If I'm going to Israel for a 2 weeks vacation, I give them my location. I'm sure nobody is going to come test me. And I assure you, if I live in some village somewhere in some distant country, nobody's coming to test me either, if I would have been, or if somebody else does. That's my opinion.
Does it bother you that McGregor situation with USADA right now?
Does it bother me? No, he's not fighting. When he fights, it might bother me.
But you don't think he's coming back at 155?
I don't think so.
Yeah, I think I agree. I think he's probably going to fight
170?
lightweight at 170 like he did with Cowboy.
Cutting weight requires a lot of discipline. I used to make 145, and I can tell you that it was so hard. Like, I can't explain how hard it was to be hungry and not be able to eat and all that stuff. Even now I make 55. It's a little bit easier, but I'm also a little bit bigger, so it's still very hard to get this big and in muscles, and also again to be McGregor, to have the fame, to have the money, to have all this, to cut all that weight. It requires so much discipline. I don't think he would want to put himself through that.
Yeah, and I think earlier in the week, maybe people misquoted Dana in an interview when he was just asked about like who makes sense for McGregor to return against, and then I guess outlets were saying he said Michael Chandler, and according to him in the post-fight press conference, he said that. He never said that.
He said that if
Yeah.
McGregor would come out, who would be a good opponent? Oh, I think Michael Chandler. Then they turned it into Conor versus Chandler next. No, chill, I understand.
If.
Yeah, but Chandler is smart, and that's why when he called McGregor out, he called him at 170 on one hand, he did the right marketing thing. He said, it's because I want you at your biggest and your baddest, which is great. On the other end, McGregor ain't coming down to 155 for all we know. And hey, I'm sure Chandler is sick of cutting weight. If he can get a fight with McGregor, what does it matter? 155, 170. If McGregor is not in good shape, he doesn't come in there disciplined, then Chandler is probably going to dominate in either weight class. They both have, I don't want to say similar frame because they don't, but they're both 55ers, when they're at their leanest. So if they're both not at their leanest, I don't think there's any real advantage for McGregor. It's like me fighting another 55er at 170 any day of the week. But if you tell me I need to fight somebody who walks around at 200 pounds at 170, then no thank you.
Yeah. I mean, Dana a couple of years ago, when they were talking about hypothetical fights for McGregor, said Masvidal would be too big for him at 170. I remember when he did say that, he made when that fight was kind of like
I think he said that.
About?
I haven't seen them one next to each other. I've seen Masvidal recently. Again, I think Masvidal used to make 55.
Right.
Conor used to make 45. So maybe he's got a little bit of a bigger frame. Maybe. I think Conor is, even though he's not near his peak anymore, I think Conor gives a hell of a fight to Masvidal.
Absolutely. And that's why I said that name. And another name, too, that would make sense would be RDA. Former lightweight champion. They had history. RDA floating between 170 and 155, a fight that never happened, that should have happened. You can make that a case, too.
I think there is something personal there that, there's a reason why some of those fighters kind of have to almost kiss McGregor's ass to get a fight with him. If he doesn't like you, he won't give you that fight. And I think he doesn't like RDA. And I think the fact that RDA is the one that pulled out of the fight, and then he's coming out tweeting, "Oh, you owe me a fight." Bro, he don't owe you shit.
That's why Michael Chandler's making the best approach, man. He's coming at him with only respect. He even said when he came to the UFC, he's not here for a long time. He's here for a good time. He's been in nothing but exciting fights.
True.
Yeah. I think Chandler is the most likely opponent, but I think when it comes to Conor McGregor, you can't go wrong with so many different names.
Yeah, no matter where he fights, it's going to sell. And I think Chandler really is probably the most entertaining fighter right now in the UFC. Sometimes, maybe too entertaining for his own good, for his own record, but definitely fun fighter to watch.
But for you, though, is there like someone that you would like to fight next?
I don't really know the landscape so much of the guys in my division. I never really dug through it too much because it doesn't matter. I'm not requesting any opponents. Sean Shelby just sends my agent the matchup, the date, and so far I've never said no to a fight in my life. He sent me Valdez. I was like, holy shit, this dude is crazy. I don't want to fight him. Contract signed.
That's excellent.
Yeah, I respect that.
Nothing but respect. Islam Makhachev fighting Alexander Volkanovski. So pound for pound number one, obviously is the 145-pound champion, going up to fight the 155-pound champion. I think Beneil Dariush's win streak's up to 8 or 9 at this point. He's the guy that's kind of screwed out in that equation.
Yeah.
How do you as a lightweight feel about that situation? Do you think that the Charles and the Volkanovski fight is the right fight to make? And also, who should Beneil fight?
Islam.
Sorry,
Yeah.
I keep saying Charles, but yeah, Islam. Thanks for correcting me. Islam and Volkanovski.
I think at the end of the day, the UFC is still a business first and foremost, and that's the fight to make, without a doubt. For us, like as a fan, you're getting a big treat here. Watching champion versus champion doesn't happen every day. Somebody as dominant like Volkanovski against somebody as incredible fighter like Islam. We got a treat on our hands, so we should enjoy it. I hope Dariush gets the next shot as soon as possible.
I don't think he's going to want to wait. So maybe it makes sense for him to fight Charles.
It would, yeah. But, I think a lot of fighters, there's always this dilemma. Do you wait? Do you not wait? I think we've seen guys like Tyron Woodley who waited for his title shot for like, what was it? I think 2 years after defeating Condit. Waited for like 2 years to get his title shot. Went in there, knocked out Robbie Lawler in under a minute. Became the champion. Definitely worth it waiting for him. And on the other hand, we got people who didn't want to wait for their title shot, got some wins, and we got people who lost, and then they lost their title shot. So I think it's really a lot like about rhythm. Some people, if they don't fight for a long time, they're gonna feel that trust. They have to fight. Also, maybe financially they have to fight. But if you're, I think you shouldn't be fueled by like fear or, oh, am I gonna be rusty or stuff like that. I think they should wait for their title shot.
And I think Beneil deserves a title shot.
Yeah.
He's earned that. But I know he wants to get active. He wants to stay active. And, he's coming off a huge performance against Gamrot, someone that was beneath him in the rankings. And he proved a point. The way he beat him, that was very damn impressive.
Yeah, very.
But who do you think wins between Islam and Alex?
That's a tough one. Like I told you, if I placed bets, I would not be a winning man. I think Islam is. I seen him at Abu Dhabi. He's a big guy. He's pretty big. I think that could be a big factor in this fight. Reach advantage, size advantage, weight coming into the cage. But also it's hard to count Volkanovski out because he's such a competitor. He's amazing. I think I will go with Volkanovski for this fight, just because of like, if I gotta choose somebody, obviously I don't know who's gonna win, but Volkanovski, for me, he's such an athlete, such a fighter, always growing from fight to fight. I think he's gonna win.
And just the way he never tapped and he was able to escape.
Yeah,
Ortega.
Yeah, he's a fighter till his last breath.
Super impressive.
Yeah.
Love that. We really appreciate you hopping on, man. Final note to end on to tell our audience any message you want to relay. Not that you haven't given us some great messages already.
Yeah, nothing. Just thank you for the support of everyone. Thank you for having me here. Appreciate you guys. Keep doing the good work.
Thank you. And our work only continues with working with great people such as yourself, covering great people such as yourself. It's such a great sport, mixed martial arts, and we just are blessed to be a part of it.
We are out.